Neste corte da entrevista do Michael Saylor no Tucker Carlson Tonight, Tucker começa perguntando a Michael por que não é possível hackear o Bitcoin se até mesmo a NASA e a Casa Branca já foram hackeadas. Michael comenta como é feita a segurança da rede do Bitcoin e fala sobre as 3 indagações que fez antes de começar a investir no criptoativo. Pode ser hackeada? Copiada ou proibida? Michael detalha a resposta dessas 3 perguntas e explica o porquê do Bitcoin não ser um problema para a soberania nacional e suas moedas estatais, e quais são as regulamentações sendo feitas para melhorar o entendimento do mercado criptoativos no mundo. Michael fala da diferença entre moeda e ativo, e do porquê você deveria comprar Bitcoin ao invés de ouro, ações ou propriedades, e quais as vantagens que o criptoativo tem em cima das outras opções. Michael faz outras analogias interessantes e diz que o Bitcoin é o único ativo que você pode levar com você após a morte, pois em essência é apenas as palavras-chave. Saylor lembra que em períodos de guerras, as pessoas deixam todo o seu patrimônio para trás e precisam sair de onde estão com urgência. Recentemente vimos isso acontecer no Afeganistão e Ucrânia, e que Bitcoin dá a chance das pessoas que estão nessas situações de levarem parte de seu patrimônio para recomeçar em outro lugar. Michael encerra dizendo que o Bitcoin é o direito à propriedade, puro e simples, e que pela primeira vez solucionamos o problema econômico da história humana.
I have two questions, okay? All of this is predicated, the remarkable case you just made on behalf of Bitcoin is predicated on the idea that Bitcoin is safe, fundamentally as a software matter, that it can't be hacked. You said that the database that undergirds it is the most secure in the world. Why are we so positive that when the CIA can be hacked, that this can't be?
Yeah, when we started down this journey, we were looking for digital gold. We're looking for engineered perfect gold that you can move at the speed of light and program on a computer.
Yes.
And the theoretical answer to that is a crypto asset that's got a fixed supply that's secure.
Yes.
So we went on this search, and there are 10,000 cryptos, Tucker.
Yes.
Right? We had to look. Is it Bitcoin? Is it Bitcoin Cash? Is it one of the clones? Is it Dogecoin? Is it, you know, fill in the blank? We applied the MicroStrategy test. It's a 3-part test. Will it be banned? Will it be hacked? Can it be copied?
Yeah.
Right? If you can duplicate it 18,000 times, then it's not scarce and it's not unique. It's not the dominant one. Okay, and if it gets banned, that's no good for us, and if it gets hacked, that's no good for us. So first of all, how can you know the answer to this from the engineering itself? Well, you can't. If the year is 2009 or 2010, you don't really know whether it'll be banned, copied, or hacked, right? There's a lot of uncertainty. We started on our quest in 2020. So in 2020, we had 12 years of history. So what did we see? Well, by 2020, the system had been attacked thousands and thousands of times, but no one had hacked it. So we had $180 billion sitting in a network that no one could figure out how to hack. No one ever hacked it. People, by the way, people will hack the banks around it or the wallets around it, but not the underlying network. So we had 12 years of no hacking incident. Now, and very good reason to believe it won't be hacked, because it is the most secure database in the world. And why is it the most secure? Because the way it works is you have to run a SHA-256 ASIC miner. It's a very special purpose computer. That computer only does one thing. It protects Bitcoin. That's all it can do. It can't stream video. It can't process for AWS. That network is that computer is millions of times more efficient at generating crypto hashes that defend the Bitcoin network. It's a special purpose thing, 7 generations. If you turned all of the AWS network or the Azure network against it, it wouldn't make a dent, because this is a very special purpose piece of hardware. So the technology that's used to secure the network is called proof of work. And proof of work is is I pour a lot of energy into the network and I run it through an encryption algorithm, and that's a SHA-256 hash generator. And the combination of those two things with the protocol means that the dominant crypto asset proof of work network will always be the most secure one, and everyone will always defect from the weaker one to the stronger one. So we saw that it hadn't been hacked. There's no way to finesse it, no matter what you do, because it really is it's a brute force wall of encrypted energy. If you want to attack the network and even try to meddle with one block, you'd have to throw $10 billion of capital equipment at it, and it'll probably take you 2 to 4 years to get ready to do that experiment.
Okay, so that leads exactly to my next question. So that's really, only a government would do that. And that leads to my next question, which is, right, so like, what's a government? A government is an organization that controls a discrete territory, has borders, and mints the coins, issues the currency. So this seems to me like an existential threat, no overstatement, to the idea of a nation state, an independent international currency. Why would governments allow this?
Yeah, so that gets to the question of, will it be banned? By the way, it can't be hacked for what I said. It can't be copied because you got to come up with the same $10 billion worth of energy and special purpose hardware. And if you had that much energy and hardware, you'd be getting paid $10 billion a year to use it to protect Bitcoin, or you get paid zero to try to copy it. So it doesn't make any sense to try to copy it. It's like the dominant monetary network, like Google and Facebook are also dominant networks. Once you get to that dominant position, it's obscenely difficult. Coming back to the banning, there's a kind of misnomer. People often call cryptocurrencies currencies, but it's not a currency, it's an asset. It's a crypto asset. So you're right, Tucker. If the government thought it was a currency, and if it competed with the US dollar or other currencies, then they would take offense and they will suppress it. But on the other hand, if it's viewed as an asset which competes with gold or with index funds or with bonds or property or real estate, just a store of value, or silver, then you can hold S&P index funds and bonds, and you can own land and you can own property. The government would simply like you to disclose when you sell it to someone else at a profit and pay your taxes on it, capital gains tax. And if you wanted to wire $100 million worth of property to someone else, they probably want you to disclose that per the AML, KYC, anti-money laundering rules.
Can it be owned anonymously?
It can be owned anonymously, except as a practical matter, if you want to acquire large sums of it, you have to acquire them on registered exchanges. So you'd be going to an institutional grade custodian, which is licensed. So what you see, maybe you get to a very important point. The government is regulated where it is allowed, and it's allowed everywhere except there's some noise in China. China is a different situation. In the Western world, the regulations are you can hold this as long as you disclose it via a regulated entity, so you're buying it through a registered exchange. And then when you transfer it, you're subject to IRS tax. You have to pay capital gains tax. And
could you conduct anonymous exchanges with it? I mean, I'm just thinking through ways that it would undermine the authority of the government, which, by the way, I'm not against necessarily, but
that's actually the primary issues before Congress and the Senate right now, right? Treasury, if you look at the past week, the Treasury, the SEC, the CFTC, Congress, and the Senate are engaged in a enthusiastic dialogue about what kind of regulations will be applied to the transfer and to the utilization of crypto assets. But the most important, for example, if you issue a crypto asset which looks like a security, like Mikey Coin, if I create Mikey Coin and I keep half of it and I issue the rest and I market it, it looks more like a security or a stock, right? That's going to fall under the jurisdiction of the SEC most likely. right? If it looks like there's a set of crypto assets called stable coins that look like US dollars. The President's Working Committee about a week ago suggested that only FDIC approved banks should issue stable coins. They want anybody issuing stable coins to be FDIC approved, insured, licensed. So there is regulation coming into the space. Ultimately, I think that the security tokens will be under pressure. The stable coins will be treated like money markets in cyberspace, and probably we're rotating from the crypto entrepreneurs to the institutional, publicly traded institutions, large banks, etc. Bitcoin, what it was going to be was a question until 2014 when the IRS designated as property. You're either property or you're currency. In an inflationary environment, money decomposes into currency and into an asset component, or property component, if you will. The currency is a medium of exchange that you can transmit without incurring a tax obligation.
Right.
Right? I give you $1 million worth of dollars. You hold it for a year. You give it to her. There's no tax bill. It's a stable coin, stable medium of exchange. On the other hand, I give you $1 million of Bitcoin. You hold it for a year. You give $1 million of Bitcoin to her, and if the price doubled, then you owe $500,000. You owe a tax on $500,000 of capital gain. See, or actually, maybe in that case, right? You transferred $1 million of Bitcoin with a basis of 500,000, a capital gain of 500,000. You owe capital gains when you transfer.
But could I make that? And not that I'm a criminal or anything, but I don't know. I don't think everything needs to be monitored by the government. Could I, under the current system, transfer that Bitcoin to someone else without the government knowing?
I think right now in the U.S. and all the institutional custodians I know of, if you go above $10,000, which is the AML limit for most banks, they're required to disclose that. Right. Yeah. So we're moving to the point where if you're transferring property, like if you wired me $1 million with Apple stock, right, there'd be a tax bill on that.
Oh, for sure.
If you wire me $1 million of Bitcoin through any kind of institutional exchange, there's a tax bill on it.
Is it possible to buy and sell Bitcoin outside of institutional exchanges?
There are peer-to-peer networks, and there's a lot of back and forth over whether or not those are allowed or not allowed, and it varies by jurisdiction. So I think that that's going to get regulated, and it is regulated differently in every jurisdiction. Generally, the scurrying is what's the regulation around tax, transfer, disclosure, anti-money laundering, counterterrorism disclosures, right? Is the disclosure none at all? Is the disclosure above 10,000? Is the disclosure 600? Right. And so all of the sparks are around how much economic freedom, right? And they have different impact. For example...
By the way, could you, when you use the terms terrorism and money laundering, can you use air quotes? Do you mind?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's above my pay grade, Tucker. Okay. So, right? All above my pay grade.
Yeah, right. Now you got to put
Here's my key point, right? You're a family, you're an institutional investor, you're a corporation, you see inflation. You either buy some land,
yes,
you buy some stocks, you buy a bunch of gold, or you buy Bitcoin. Why would you buy the Bitcoin? Because you want the apex asset.
Exactly.
You don't want the dilution of gold. You don't want the dilution of stocks. You don't want the property tax on property. You don't want the maintenance headache of property. All other forms of property can be impaired, confiscated, inflated away. All other forms of property, right? You have rental buildings in New York City, and there's a rent control, and you can't evict your tenants, and there's a property tax. And it's hard to sell it, and you got to maintain it. And so all other properties, they come with a maintenance cost, they come with a risk. The idea of Bitcoin is digital property. It's digital gold, it's digital property, it's digital money, it's digital energy. The idea is let's create something pure. It's better gold than gold because $1 billion of it is weightless, moves at the speed of light for free, and I can hold it in my head. It's better property than property because there's no maintenance costs and I can't seize it from you. It's better money because for the same reason. It moves at the speed of light. It's programmable. Yeah, try to send money on a Saturday afternoon. Try to send a currency on a Saturday afternoon from a bank here to a bank in France or a bank in Nigeria. Can't do it. Just can't do it. So it's not spoils of war. It's spoils of peace. This is another big idea I want to make. With everything else, if we monetize, if we have a bunch of money, if I give you $1 million and I tell you to go buy stuff with it, and you buy gold jewelry and a house and a car and a whatever, and I want it, I put a gun to your head, give me your stuff, Tucker, and you say no, I shoot you and take your stuff. There's nothing in this world that you can own that I can't take with force, except Bitcoin. Okay? If you take the $1 million and you buy Bitcoin, and you take personal custody of it, and you own the keys password is in your head. I hold a gun to your head, give me your Bitcoin, you can say no. Now, I can still shoot you in the head, but I don't get the property. You see? You can take it. This is the only property in the history of mankind, Tucker, you can take to the grave. The pharaohs wanted to take their gold with them to the grave. They created these pyramids to bury themselves with gold, but grave diggers and grave robbers steal the gold. You can't take anything else with you, but you can take the password in your head. Why is that significant? Well, you study the history of the Jews in the 30s in Nazi Germany, and most of them left with, if they were lucky, 10% of their assets. They would have left with all their assets if their assets were in Bitcoin. They couldn't move their house. They can't move a building. You can't haul the gold. Maybe you try to smuggle diamonds, not very good store of value. It's the history of every diaspora, every people. When you leave, when the Jews got driven out of Spain in, 1500, during the Inquisition, it was all over property, right? They're stealing their property. So what are property rights? Property rights is you can own stuff and no one can take it away from you. I had $1 million in a bank in Argentina 20 years ago. It was in US dollars. The peso was 1 to the dollar. The Argentine government sent a memo to the banks, forcibly converted everybody's dollars to pesos, and then forcibly devalued the peso 10 for 1. And I woke up the next morning and I had $100,000. I had $1 million the day before. They stole 90% of all the currency from everybody in the country overnight on a fax, without a law, without an army. Now, how hard would it be to take all of the property of everybody in the country with Bitcoin? You have to go arrest 60 million people, sweat them all in a jail for 90 days. How do you arrest 60 million people and sweat them in jail for 90 days? It's like 1 billion times harder. So Bitcoin is property rights, properly understood, and that is an important economic empowerment. It's a protection of individual liberties. It's John Locke's dream, life, liberty, and property. Go west, young man. Why'd people come to America? Because if you were Catholic in Northern Europe, they took your land and property. If you're Protestant in Southern Europe, they took your land and property. If you're a Jewish person everywhere, they're always taking your land and property. Everybody went to America so that they could actually have freedom and have property, and no one would take it at the point of a gun, and they kept moving west. Bitcoin is moving your property into cyberspace, where it's protected by a wall of encrypted energy against those that would do you harm. And because it's the hardest to tax, and it's the hardest to steal, and it's the hardest to confiscate, it makes it the last thing in the world you're going to attack, the path of least resistance. Right? When it's time for me to tax property in California, I'm going to put a tax on the building. Buildings don't move. If I put a 2% tax on the Bitcoin's moving to Wyoming. If I put a 2% tax in Wyoming, it's moving to whatever state in the union they didn't tax it. And when the entire country taxes it, it's moving to Monaco. And if everybody, in Monaco taxes it, I can sell it to someone in China, right? It's universally desirable, scarce property, hard to steal. You can sell it, you can put a lien on it, you can mortgage it, you can develop it, you can protect it. And if your choice was take all your money and invest it in buildings in the city of your choice, or invest it in a company or securities, or invest it in collectibles, all those things are subject to expropriation, confiscation, inflation, taxation. This is the first time we kind of solved the problem.